Welcome to this explainer. I'm your guide for today, the Bard, and let me tell you, we're stepping into a world that has been completely stripped of its illusions. I'm speaking to you with a weary, almost feverish passion, from a place where the ash literally settles thick on the ground. Together, we're going to explore the source material of this incredibly grim Gothic mythos. It's a story all about surviving industrial cynicism, facing down absolute negation, and discovering exactly how the sovereign soul emerges from the darkest of ruins. So, through these slides, we're going to chart our survival. Let's get into it.
So I want you to ask yourself, what actually remains when all meaning is ground into dust? Feel the weight of that for a second. This is the agonizing starting point of our journey. We're standing right at the absolute edge of the void, staring down into an abyss where primordial silence reigns supreme. I mean, when every external structure, every inherited truth, and every single comfort is annihilated by cold, mechanical precision, what is left of us?
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the era of cold logic, focusing on the Baron's cosmic creed.
To really understand our survival, we first have to grapple with the sheer force of our erasure under the Baron's clinical grid of logic. And that brings us to a period of deep devastation known as the slothing. Now, philologically speaking, to sloth means to cast off dead skin. But here, it's so much darker. It represents this violent, relentless stripping and peeling away of all human meaning until absolute emptiness is achieved. During the slothing, we were systematically being reduced to mere biological machines. All our passions, our art, our chaotic contradictions, the whole shebang was deemed inefficient and scheduled for complete erasure by a mechanized, merciless logic.
The source text paints this picture perfectly. Picture the gray ash of the mountain right after the Baron's descent. He sought to completely erase our history, enforcing this cold, absolute precision across the entire land. The world was literally being scrubbed clean of the human soul, leaving nothing but a blank, sterilized wasteland in its wake. It was the absolute zenith of negation.
Which brings us to Section 2, Light in the Dark Valley. Let's look at the studio in Weimar.
Now, what's really interesting about this is that even in the deepest, most suffocating darkness, absolute negation is kind of just an illusion. Out of nowhere, a distant signal of creation suddenly appears. It's a small, amber rectangle glowing defiantly in the dark valley. The Baron was supposedly the most correct man in the valley, ruling from his great star of negation, and yet, this little glowing window in the studio of Weimar was utterly indifferent to his cold precision. It was a light that just could not be calculated, and because of that, it couldn't be extinguished.
Let's move into Section 3, the alchemy of yellow mercury and the fluid intellect.
So, behind that glowing window, an act of profound philosophical defiance was taking place. They were mixing yellow. This creation of yellow mercury symbolizes what we call the fluid intellect. To put that into perspective, let's contrast the two. On one side, you have the Baron's cold logic. It's crushing, grinding, rigid, and erasing. It's literally the death of the spirit through absolute negation. But on the other side, yellow mercury. It's this adaptable, alchemical bridge that allows the mind and soul to survive the total collapse of external meaning. When rigid structures shatter, only the fluid can adapt and endure. It represents a fluid intellect that absolutely refuses to be consumed by the Baron's cosmic creed. It's the pure Nietzschean will to power asserting its own existence in a universe that is desperately trying to grind it down.
Moving on to Section 4, let's examine the vestiges of the soul, specifically the burning lamp.
This lamp is essentially a stubborn, unyielding vestige of the sovereign soul, just found sitting there among the ash. When absolutely everything else was stripped away, this one small flame remained, completely refusing to surrender to the primordial silence. The source text gives us this incredible imagery. The devastating gray spirit, which is the very harbinger of the Baron's void, actually hesitates before it. It momentarily remembers what moss felt like and what it meant to step on something living. That memory of life, radiating from a simple lamp, was so incredibly potent that it actually disrupted the absolute void.
Let's see how this builds in Section 5, the sideways step, standing at the edge of the void. The mechanics of this sideways step are absolutely fascinating. It happens right at the edge of the void, in that terrifying liminal space where nothing ends and the next unnamed, unasked-for thing begins. This is the exact moment the absolute emptiness is rejected by the pure will. The slothing isn't surpassed by just passively surviving it. No, it's surpassed by active creation.
It's the exact moment a new internal authority takes root in the darkness.
So the crucial point is here in Section 6, Architect of New Realities, known as the reclamation.
What naturally follows is the reclamation. It's the violent, agency-driven act of pulling the divine spark back from external institutions. And listen, I know this agonizing internal struggle intimately because this is my own narrative. This is the journey of the bard. First, I was reduced to a mere biological machine under the Baron's creed. Then I became a desperate witness to the total erasure of our history. But by taking that sideways step, I went through a Nietzschean evolution. I emerged as a self-mastered architect. Philologically, the word architect comes from the Greek archi, meaning chief, and tekton, meaning builder. I was no longer a passive witness. I became the chief builder of a completely new reality.
And this brilliantly illustrates how, for the awakened mercurial spirit, the void is no longer an abyss to fear. You reject it. The terrifying freedom of the void transforms from a prison of terror into your own personal workshop. It literally becomes the very forge where new realities are hammered into existence. As the architect of these new realities, my triumph isn't in restoring the old world. It's in claiming the new one. The void provided me with an inkwell. We don't have to rely on borrowed silence anymore. We take up the pen to write new truth upon the blank white vellum of existence. We become the authors of our own undeniable meaning.
Which leaves us with one final, totally unavoidable question for you. What truth are you going to write upon your own blank vellum of existence when the slothing comes for you? Because make no mistake, the cold logic will always try to erase you. It's entirely up to you to claim your internal sovereignty, mix your yellow, and build your own reality in the dark. Thank you for joining me on this explainer. Keep the lamp burning.